Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for joining me. Today is April the 7th, 2022. I always appreciate you sharing your time with me. So I have one breaking news uh, on the approval of Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. This is a lifetime appointment, and is a very historical, the first African American to join the highest court on the land, on the world. So this is a very historical moment, and the hearing was brutal, but she is approved now. So I will start with the video I shared from MSNBC. So let's start with that one. Then I have also three different videos, one on Ethiopia, one on El Salvador, and the other one, United Nations General Assembly on the removal of Russia from Security Council, Human Rights Council. So that's also a milestone, plus other news. So let's get started with the approval of Justice Brown.
The final vote was 53 to 47 to confirm her. That does mean three Republicans did cross over: Mitt Romney, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins. You could also see the smile very broadly across Vice President Kamala Harris's face as she announced that the vote did pass, that Ketanji Brown Jackson will be the next Supreme Court justice, replacing Justice Breyer, and noting that the White House would be informed of this vote. I'm told Pete Williams joins us. Pete?
Sure, while it is a close vote, it is not the closest vote in Supreme Court history for a confirmation. Clarence Thomas and Amy Coney Barrett both got 52 votes. So Ketanji Brown Jackson has 53, and Brett Kavanaugh had only 50 when he was confirmed to the Supreme Court 4 years ago, with the support of just one Democrat. So it's a close vote, but by no means the closest. And Supreme Court confirmation votes used to be very uncontroversial things. Remember that Antonin Scalia, who ended up being one of the Supreme Court's most controversial nominees, was confirmed 98 to nothing. So those days are long gone. It's more a reflection of the partisanship that has taken over the Senate than it is about the qualifications of Supreme Court nominees, that these votes have been so close. So that's point one. Point two is, now what? Ketanji Brown Jackson has a decision to make here about whether she will stay on the Court of Appeals until she becomes a justice. She's not a justice yet. This is an important step along the way, but it's not the end of the road. Tomorrow, we think she's going to be at the White House for some sort of ceremonial event, perhaps the constitutional oath. That still doesn't do it. She still has to take the judicial oath, and that won't be administered until Stephen Breyer is no longer on the Supreme Court at the end of June or early July. So for now, she's in a holding pattern, and the question is, what does she do? She could continue with her day job, which is a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals here in Washington, but she may wish to step down from that, because if she gets involved in deciding cases that then are appealed to the Supreme Court, she would have to decide whether to recuse herself from those. So it may be, she hasn't said, her chambers haven't said, but it may be that she'll choose to step down from that for these next few months until the Supreme Court term ends. This is an unusual thing, because normally what happens is a Supreme Court justice announces the intention to step down at the end of a term, and then the confirmation process plays out, and the justice goes whipping up to the court just before it convenes at the first Monday in October. That's certainly the way it was for Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch. They came toward the end of the summer. So, and Amy Coney Barrett, I think even after the term had already started. So Ketanji Brown Jackson will have the whole summer to get ready. But there is this overlap period. It's happened 5 times before in history. but those periods were always just a few days. I think the longest one was 14 days when we went from Chief Justice Earl Warren to Chief Justice Warren Burger. There was a 14-day overlap. But this one is so much longer because Stephen Breyer's announcement to step down from the court came so relatively early in the term, and the confirmation and nomination process for Ketanji Brown Jackson happened so fast. So she's got a decision to make here in the short term about what she's going to do for the next couple of months.
Okay, so thank you, MSNBC, for sharing this very important stage, important confirmation of Ketanji Brown Johnson. So I have more videos at the end. So this is, very, very, very essential, very, very important step in the American inclusion process, especially for the minorities, the African Americans and others. So it's not an easy step to have African American on the highest court on the land, on that bench. So she will be one of the 9 justices in the Supreme Court. So it's not uneasy. And you saw it maybe probably when the hearing was conducted. You saw the anonymity, the questioning, all, some are necessary, reasonable questions, some are just attacking, racist questions. So America coming, a long way, but still is not complete. So many representation is needed in the Senate, in the House of Representatives. We need to see more. America is changing. So that change should be reflected in our representatives, whether at the local level or at the highest level. So I'm happy, Concerned Citizens Media is happy to see Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation to the Supreme Court, to the highest land of the land, the highest court in the land. So congratulations, Ketanji Brown Johnson. We wish you success in the new position. So saying that, let's continue with other news. Really, this it's not an easy. It looks like an easy thing, but it's not. The United States is had very bad history against the minorities, and from denying service into regular restaurant buses. So we are coming farther. Still, we have a long way to go, whether in employment or raising salaries, so many issues and benefits, especially in employment process. Some are just denied regular raising in the company, giving them different excuses, and so some are forced to move to a different company because of some hidden. You cannot sue them in the court. It's hidden, very hard to identify. So many kind of unofficial discrimination still in this country, but we are coming a long way to challenge them and see success in seeing our representatives, the new America in Supreme Court, in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, in the White House. So we need more. The struggle should continue. Again, I say congratulations to Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson on your nomination. Good luck again. So I will start with a warning from Odaa Tarbii, OLF international person on the humanitarian, on looming humanitarian crisis throughout Ethiopia. He tweeted different tweets, so I'll read this quickly. We are facing a looming humanitarian crisis throughout the country very soon. The consequences of the ongoing drought are being exacerbated by the brutality of the Abiy regime. Farmers have been driven off their lands by regime forces in western, central, and southern Oromia. The remaining reserves of food in western and central Oromia will run out in a few months. Southern Oromia is already facing deaths of livestock at a large scale and a bracing for human starvation very soon. In the north, Agaus and the Tigrayans are already facing starvation. Meanwhile, the Abiy regime forces continue to burn down villages and farmland throughout Oromia as a punitive measure against the civilian population. They are also forcefully recruiting young men who would otherwise be helping their families with the crops. We are looking what could be the worst humanitarian disaster in the country's history. The regime continues to block any peace efforts and is actively making the situation worse. Our people expected to die as the intern. The OLA has instituted various programs to provide parts of southern Oromia with the water and medical care. However, there is a lot more required in order to avoid the looming disaster. The international aid organizations are still not present in some of the worst afflicted areas. The coverage of the situation in Ethiopia continues to fail to capture the complete scope of what is happening. Very soon, it will be too late to avert the coming disaster, and it will affect everyone in the country. Steps must be taken now to alleviate the people's suffering. So this is a very serious warning on the looming humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia, especially in Oromia. So he is calling on the international aid organization, international communities to act before too late. So to pay attention, especially in Oromia and other parts of the country. And he is also raising the situation how the Prosperity Party official and Abiy Ahmed administration acting against the farmers and in Oromia region. So that's a warning, and it's a looming crisis coming. So the world should act. And I know the United States is also the Senate, the Foreign Relations Committee, also released a press statement on the crisis related with Ukraine's invasion by Russia. So I have that one too. Ethiopia is also included in that warning. This is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia responding to Amnesty International report. So now the government officially responded to the Amnesty International report. So I'll read to you and what they say. It's just a one-page statement. On the joint report of Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. So this is from the government of Ethiopia, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The government of Ethiopia will carefully examine the content of Amnesty International and the Human Rights Watch report on allegedly committed crimes in Walqait, A curiosity look at the report indicates that it covers sensitive political changes in the country, peace and security, and international boundary matters, in addition to so-called findings on grave allegations of human rights. It makes allegations of ethnic cleansing, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The government of Ethiopia is committed to holding accountable all those responsible for violation of human rights and humanitarian law. They can say whatever for the publicity, but no accountability. Yeah, they can use whatever glory words, but no accountability in Ethiopia. We know that. It is for this reason the government established the Inter-Ministerial Task Force following the publication of the joint investigation by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission and the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The task force has held its second meeting today, that means yesterday, issuing various directives to expedite the investigation process. The investigating teams will closely examine this report and give it due consideration. Yeah, they can play whatever game they, who is ordering this genocide, all this war? From the prime minister. Now they are talking about investigation. Can the prime minister investigate himself? Can he resign? Can he go himself into jail? I don't think so. So they are trying to play around by establishing some task force. The government, however, questions the validity of numerous political matters the two organizations felt necessary or in their remit to address. Firstly, matters of international boundaries are dealt with by constitutionally mandated bodies. It is unwise for activist organization to pass judgment on such matter. Activist organization. They should know their report will now be used for political purposes. This attitude is certainly not acceptable. They failed to exercise due diligence, now blaming the Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. The government is also concerned about the ethnic undertones of the report that seem to apportion blame disproportionately while trying to exculpate others. This fuels hatred and makes reconciliation and healing more difficult. Responsibility is individual. All those responsible for the alleged violation will be held accountable. The responsibility is individual, yes, but this is not individuals acting on their capacity. This is a systematic government-led operation. Similarly, blaming one group does not serve the cause of human rights and peace. Other weaknesses in the report are also very apparent. They rely largely on alleged testimonies from certain groups. The government investigation team will examine this report despite such fatal weakness and unfair attack against the gallant forces of Ethiopian National Defense Force and allied forces. This report comes after the indefinite humanitarian truce came into effect and aid has started to flow to the Tigray region. The government expressed hope that this will lay the foundation for lay the foundation. Okay. Apology. Lay the foundation for genuine effort to end the conflict peacefully. The report unfortunately strays into making recommendations unhelpful for any peace effort. Nonetheless, the government reiterates its commitment to seriously examine all allegations of violations of human rights and humanitarian laws and make its finding public. Okay, nothing is expected from you anyway. You can write a nice letter. You can complain as much as you want, and you are responsible, starting from the Prime Minister office and from all the FANU, the Amara militia, and the Eritrean forces, and those forces joined from different regions, plus the military generals, the top military generals who conducted and ordered this operation under the pretext of law in order operation. I hope the day will come when we can see these people accounted for the crimes they committed, heinous crime, and still happening under their watch. And they armed the Amara militia, the FANOS, and still hideous crimes ongoing in Ethiopia, including the crimes we never seen before in Ethiopia, the burning of human beings while they are in their house and while in the public view, and public assassination, so many crimes. So the Ethiopian government, they can say whatever with this letter and others public appearance, but they are the one responsible for those crimes. They cannot escape. They cannot escape blaming individual soldiers. No, no. This is targeting additional Russian financial institution officials and other individuals. This is press statement, Anthony J. Blinken, Secretary of State. The United States is united with our allies and partners to ensure the government of Russia pays a severe price for causing such death and destruction in Ukraine, and particularly for the horrors in Bucha and elsewhere. In furtherance of this goal, today we are implementing full blocking sanction on two key Russian financial institutions, Sberbank, Russia's largest financial institution, and its subsidiaries, and Alpha Bank, one of the largest private banks in Russia, and its subsidiaries. These entities continue to sustain President Putin's aggression against Ukraine. Accordingly, all U.S. persons are generally prohibited from engaging in transactions with Sberbank or Alpha Bank. In addition, we are imposing sanctions on the adult children of President Vladimir Putin, Katerina Tikhonova and Maria Vorontsova, as well as Maria Lavrova, the wife of Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and Ekaterina Lavrova, his daughter. The United States is also designating 21 members of Russia's National Security Council, including former President Dmitry Medvedev and Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin, for their role and authority in crafting the Kremlin's brutal policies and resulting abuses. And finally, President Biden's executive order today banned new investment in Russia, forcing Russia further down the road of financial and economic isolation. This announcement of new economic sanctions follows our approval last night of $100 million in new security assistance to help Ukraine meet a continued need for additional anti-armor systems. This is only the most recent of 6 drawdowns of arms, equipment, and supplies from Department of Defense inventories for Ukraine since August 2021, and bringing U.S. military assistance to almost 2.5 billion since September and 4.5 billion since 2014. The United States commends the continued support of our allies and partners across the world in the face of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine and recognize the bravery and heroism of its people, and they defend their country and their freedom against Russia's brutal war against Ukraine. United with our allies and partners, the United States will continue to impose economic costs on Russia for their actions through economic sanctions and provide security assistance in support of Ukraine's defense, as well as economic support and humanitarian aid for communities across Ukraine devastated by Russia's ruthless brutality. So that's additional sanctions on Russia, plus the family of these senior officials, Vladimir Putin children, and the foreign minister of Russia. So the situation is still in very tense. All sanctions put in place, and Russia is globally isolated, and they are out from Human Rights Council. The General Assembly already voted, so they are facing pressure. They are facing global isolation. The issue is the war didn't stop. The Ukraine is still burning. Ukrainians are still suffering. That's the issue. But Russians are also paying heavy price. In addition to this global isolation, financial sanctions, they are also dying. They are losing their tanks, their airplanes, and other armaments in Ukraine. It's not easy, but because of this one-man decision, one man makes all this trouble. This is from U.S. senators. Senator Jim Risch, Idaho, Republican, Bob Menendez, Democrat, New Jersey. These are ranking members, calling on the president to act very seriously to challenge, food insecurity created by the war in Ukraine. So, U.S. senators are Jim Risch and Bob Menendez, ranking members, and the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee are calling on the Biden administration to establish an interagency and international strategy for the U.S. to help mitigate the looming food security crisis spurred by Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Citing ongoing concerns for countries already facing extreme food insecurity, the senators pressed the administration to expand the reach of international emergency and development food assistance by devising a multi-pronged plan to improve supply chain efficiencies and shipping logistics in collaboration with the private sector, advocate for increased support to multilateral institutions, streamline interagency cooperation, release strategic humanitarian grain reserves, and ensure the State Department redoubles its diplomatic effort to resolve global conflict and lift barriers to life-saving assistance. Russia's reckless and illegal invasion of Ukraine is resulting in a grave global food security crisis that threaten to push millions of people into hunger and destabilize regions of strategic importance to the United States. The senators wrote to President Biden citing drastic increase in the cost of staple grains, fuel, shipping, and fertilizers. The impact of Putin's war are exacerbated an already grave humanitarian crisis triggered in a large measure by the devastating effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on global hunger and poverty. The compounding effects of this cascading event may create one of the worst food insecurity crises in decades. As Putin's invasion of Ukraine surges global food and fuel prices, the United Nations World Food Programme recently announced it expects an initial price increase of 71 million per month to be able to conduct its global operations, leaving an estimated 3.8 million people without access to emergency food. So this is their calling. The cost of delivering food assistance is expected to skyrocket with the United Nations World Food Program warning that it expects an initial price 71 million. Okay, sorry. So which countries are included in this? I'm gonna read. The compounding effect of this cascading event may create one of the world's food insecurity crises in decades. Of significant concern are countries like Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, Libya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Somalia, which are already facing dire level of food insecurity and where current needs are outpacing humanitarian resources. We urge the administration to tackle this crisis with a strong, coordinated, and innovative response. We therefore call on you to swiftly convene experts from across the government to devise and implement a robust, multi-pronged, actionable plan to address the increasing threats to global food security, including by improving supply chain efficiencies and shipping logistics in close collaboration with the private sector. So this is a very long letter written by these ranking members of foreign relations to the President Joe Biden to act before too late on global food insecurity and other challenges. So it goes with Odaa Tarbii call. Odaa Tarbii also call on the international community before too late in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is also included in this senator's call for food insecurity in the country, plus Afghanistan, Somalia, and others. So we appreciate Odaa Tarbii, OLF international person, for raising serious challenges and what Abiy is doing in that country. So it's good to have people, advocating for the people who doesn't have any voice in Ethiopia. This is an opinion on under the title Israelis' Phobia about Ramadan. This must be maybe a Palestinian doctor wrote this opinion. I'm gonna read it quickly. For Muslims, the holy month of Ramadan is associated with peace, serenity, tranquility, happiness, family, and charity. In many Muslim countries, public authorities and the private sector's employers reduce working hours to allow their employees to worship and pray in a more relaxed atmosphere. Friends, neighbors, and relatives often organize meals to break the fast and to break the fast at sunset every day, where people who are usually too busy to meet can get together and remember their duty towards the poor and the needy. The situation in the occupied Palestinian territories, though, is different in many ways, especially in Jerusalem, where Israel seems to have a phobia about Ramadan. Armed officers at countless checkpoints scrutinize the identity of worshippers heading for prayers at Alaska Mosque. Thousands of Israeli occupation police, including some of horsebacks, surround the noble sanctuary. It is all part of Israeli effort after more than 50 years of illegal annexation and occupation to Judaize Jerusalem, regardless of international law and the United Nations resolution. The apartheid state wants to make its illegal occupation permanent and legitimate. Israel's provocation of the indigenous Muslim Palestinians is intended to let them know who is in charge. In its early years, its left-leaning leadership didn't make the Judaization of Muslim and Christian holy place a priority. Subsequent leaders such as Benjamin Netanyahu and his successor as Prime Minister Naftali Bennett think otherwise, as their ideology and electorate is of the far right and the religious right, who want Israel to be a Jewish state, including the holy places of other faith groups. The holy month of Ramadan this year coincides from 16 to 22 April with the Jewish Passover. Extremist Jewish settlers take this as a reason enough to break into Alaska Mosque. Indeed, they are already preparing to slaughter goats inside the mosque during the festival. These settlers know that Bennett's government is weak and that this represents a golden opportunity to implement their plans to divide the holy mosque in the noble sanctuary temporarily and spatially between Jews and Muslims. They know that Bennett is unable to challenge them because he fears losing right-wing votes and coalition support. Everything is ready for the Passover sacrifice here and there, said Rabbi Yehuda Cruz, one of the rabbis of the new Sanhedrin, during the incursion at Alaska Mosque on the third day of Ramadan. Priests are ready and their clothes are ready. Raphael Morris, the leader of the extremist Return to the Temple Mount movement, has filed an official request with the Israeli occupation police to allow him and his followers to offer the Passover sacrifice at Alaska on the evening of Friday, 15 April. Temple groups have dropped their usual reservation and published an invitation to storm Alaska on Passover. They decorated the pamphlet with a small lamb as a symbol of the sacrifice that their rabbis vow to offer in the mosque. According to far-right Knesset member Itamar Ben-Gvir, who stormed into the noble sanctuary of Alaska last Thursday, just before Ramadan. Whoever controls Alaska controls all of the land of Israel, and our enemy understand that. A confrontation of this potential magnitude could lead to greater damage than the one in May last year, divert world attention from Ukraine to the occupied Holy City, and undermine the Judaization process. Even worse, from Bennett's point of view, it could lead to the downfall of his coalition government. That's why he has taken some legal, security, military, and political steps to try to avoid a major confrontation. The Israeli Supreme Court, for example, has postponed the eviction of Palestinians from their homes in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood and suspend its consideration of the ownership issue in Sheikh Jarrah that could explode uncontrollably. Furthermore, Israel leaders have met with Palestinian Authority officials who promised to do their best to prevent any escalation by the people of occupied Palestine. Israel media reported that President Isaac Herzog, along with the Minister of Defense Benny Gantz and Foreign Minister Yair Lapid, met with Jordan King Abdullah in preparation for the month of Ramadan. Bennett himself met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Sharm el-Sheikh in the presence of United Arab Emirates officials. The Israeli occupation police have deployed 3,000 officers in the old city and the surrounding neighborhoods of occupied Jerusalem under the pretext of a possible outbreak of violence. Gantz has added 300 soldiers to the volatile mix in the case of any escalation. Chief of Staff General Aviv Kochivi, meanwhile, has threatened another military offensive against Gaza as a deterrent to Palestinian resistance operations. His security plan for Ramadan is condemned wave breakers. All of this brings to mind the events of last Ramadan, when the same illegal settlers were preparing to storm Al-Aqsa Mosque to celebrate the unification of Jerusalem, a reference to the 1967 occupation of the city, and the 7 Palestinian families were under threat of eviction from their homes in Sheikh Jarrah. That all led to the killing of Palestinians and the May's Israel offensive against Gaza. Of course, all losses on the Palestinian side are devastating, but this has become the habitual norm. The real shock was suffered by the Israelis when their cities came under fire, not only from Gaza, but also from Lebanon and Syria. And there was a general uprising by some of the occupation states' Palestinian citizens, who make up 20% of the population. Bennett is caught between a rock and a hard place. His own right-wing supporters and the Palestinians, who are stronger than ever. Israel may come to regret that in its Ramadan phobia precluded taking any measures against the illegal settlers and their deadly provocation. So that's this is like a warning for Israelis especially the right-wing Israelis who try to celebrate Passover in Alaska mosque, including slaughtering some sheep. That's a provocation because, as I said before, they have no control. Nobody said anything to them. They are very superpower in that area in the Middle East. They have the guns, they have the soldiers, they have their own Supreme Court, they have the army, they have everything. The Palestinians, nothing. All their friends abandoned them. All these Arab countries abandoned the Palestinian cause. The Egyptians, the Jordans, all of them, they abandoned the case. They care about their own benefits. They don't care about these poor Palestinians who are suffering, who are keep losing their territories. Now they're gonna lose the Alaska mosque, which is a historical mosque. Never belonged to Israel, but now the Israelis want to take it. So that's a very challenging, and I'm calling on international, communities, the United Nations, to speed up the two-state solution before Palestinians are losing all their lands. Uh, talk of 1967 border is useless now. Palestinians lost more lands after that, so that's impossible. Let's talk about the possible one. Let them help to have their own state so they cannot lose more ground. Instead of talking about talking about 1967 border. No, that's unimaginary now. It's impossible. How are you gonna implement it? That's too far. Let's talk about now. Stop the Israelis from expanding and have two-state solution now. Then talk about 1967, how we can get the land the Palestinian lost. So that's enough on the reading. Then let's share 2 videos or 3 videos, short ones, and end today's presentation. Thank you again. I always appreciate your presence. So before I turn on the video, I warn you not to watch with children, especially the one on Ethiopia. It might be a graphic video, the Amnesty International report. So please, if you are sensitive to these materials, don't watch it. This is in case you miss from different media. So let's listen what the Amnesty report on the video and the Human Rights Watch.
Mayor, he kept telling us that we need to move, that we don't belong to stay here.
They took all my cutlass, burned my sorghum in the house, and told us this is not our region. They said our land is east of the Takazi River.
They kept saying every night, we will kill you. Go out of the area.
The fighting followed years of growing tensions between the Ethiopian federal government, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and leaders of Tigray's ruling political party. Government forces were soon joined by security forces from the Amhara region, which neighbors Tigray, as well as soldiers from the country of Eritrea. The conflict has resulted in numerous abuses on both sides and millions of people displaced. Initially, heavy fighting between the Ethiopian military with their allies against Tigrayan fighters took place around Western Tigray. Electricity, banking, and telecommunications, including the internet and phone lines to Tigray, were cut off. Residents described heavy shelling and gunfire as Ethiopian and allied forces entered their towns.
When the Ethiopian and Amhara forces entered the town, people were panicked and began running to the farms. They started killing people. No warning, just shooting. They shot at people running.
Soon, an interim administration for Western Tigray was established by forces from the neighboring Amhara region, an administration hostile to the presence of Tigrayans.
Papers said Tigrayans need to leave the town immediately. They were thrown everywhere. So when we woke up in the morning, you should see it on your door or on the way to church. Everywhere.
I was in Dansha town, where I have a hairdressing shop. 6 militia came to loot my shop. 2 of them raped me. They said, "You Tigrayan, you should disappear from the land west of the Kaza. You are evil, and we are purifying your blood."
In the first 2 months of their control, they looted everything in the town, all the crops. They took our cows. We had nothing to eat. Everything we had was taken.
The militia would even write on the houses that belong to Tigrayans, "This is ours. This is Amhara house." They told us not to speak in Tigrinya.
Meanwhile, as reports of atrocities became widespread, Ethiopian authorities limited access to Western Tigray for international journalists and human rights and humanitarian groups. In Adi Goshu town, in January 2021, Amhara Special Forces and militias rounded up around 60 residents, transported them to the Tekeze Bridge, and shot them.
The Amhara Special Forces told us to disembark. They lined us up in rows, cocked their guns, and sprayed us with bullets. We fell in the ditch below. After that, they said, "Tigrayans don't die easily. Shoot again."
As abuses in Western Tigray continued, hundreds of thousands of Tigrayans were forced to flee their homes. Some fled to Sudan, while many more were forcibly displaced to other parts of Tigray in a brutal ethnic cleansing campaign.
After seeing this and other incidents, I thought, what are we expecting? Are we waiting for them to kill all of us? Why don't we cross the Tekaze River while we still have our lives?
We could not access the toilets. They did not give us any food or water. A lot of people were falling ill. There were some people that died from torture. They tie your hands and feet. They hit you in your testicle, your head, and your chest. All of us went through it.
Tigrayans in Western Tigray continue to be subjected to torture, arbitrary detention, and other grave human rights abuses.
All I want is peace. All I want to do is to be able to speak Tigrinya freely, my mother tongue. I am a beekeeper, and all I want to do is work.
So that's a horrible genocide
from over 200 indoor
when
and outdoor allergens day after
happened
day.
in Western
Claritin
Tigray.
Clear.
So this is United Nations General Assembly voted to remove Russia from UN Human Rights Council. Or suspending them from Human Rights Council. as another step isolating Russia from the global stage for for the invasion of Ukraine. So heavy price. They are paying heavy price, even though all this price didn't stop the war they are waging on Ukraine. As U.S. Ambassador at United Nations, Linda Thomas.
Of the world, the more likely they are to be better people.
Okay, I have one more video
Here are 5 things you need to know
about El
A
Salvador.
frightening image inside a prison in El Salvador, and President Nayib Bukele wants the world to see. He says it shows gang members punished and kept in crowded cells away from any sunlight since the end of March. Bukele says the food is now being rationed to 2 meals per day for gang members now facing harsher sentences. For 10 days, the country's national police has been operating with less restrictions. They say they've arrested over 6,000 suspected gang members, tracking them in neighborhoods, inside homes, and even hiding underground. The crackdown in response to one of the deadliest weekends in El Salvador, authorities reporting 67 homicides in a single day, prompting a state of emergency that gave way to mass arrest and tougher punishment to gang members already behind bars. This week, President Bukele doubling down on his efforts.
Ustedes desatan una ola de criminalidad y nosotros quitamos la comida en las cárceles.
Threatening that any retaliation to the recent crackdown would lead to further punishment.
Por ahí andan rumores que quieren empezarse a vengar de la gente honrada, al azar. Hagan eso y no va a haber un tiempo de comida en las cárceles. Uno. A ver cuánto tiempo duran sus homeboys allá adentro.
For days, the president touting the efforts on social media under the hashtag War on Gangs. Bukele even asking parents to show the videos to their teenage children and warn them, saying gangs can only lead to prison or death. President Bukele, operating with the support of residents and Congress, which first approved a state of emergency that allows for all new detainees to be held for 15 days without access to an attorney, a move that human rights groups say is creating a framework for abuse.
Las autoridades no han dicho ni han mostrado que haya investigaciones previas como para decir que están desmontando alguna estructura de pandillas y que justifique 6.000 capturas.
But Bukele responding to criticism, accusing them of defending the gangs.
Y no me importa lo que digan los organismos internacionales, que vengan a proteger a nuestra gente, que vengan a llevarse a sus pandilleros, si tanto lo quieren.
Now, this all started March 27th, so there's still 20 days left of the state of emergency, under which the National Police will continue to operate with less restrictions, and the president not backing down, warning that life will only get more difficult for all gang members in El Salvador.
Okay.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that video. It's tough, but you know, the killing of 67 in a single day, that's a very serious crime. So it should be stopped by, you know, by any means. But I think raising human rights issue is also reasonable. So they should be, you know, criminals should be arrested and they should be tried according to the legal system available. So any abuse is not acceptable. You know, the government should use any mechanism to prevent civilian deaths. That's 67 homicide every day. That's very bad one. So El Salvador, good luck with your operation, but please don't break the human rights laws. Respect the dignity, humanity. Now lined up without closing all these gang members, 6,000 of them, for media purpose, or to teach others not to engage in that kind of behavior. Maybe it's gonna work. So thank you again. Let me finish up today's presentation. The one is the Amnesty International report and the Human Rights Watch combined report. Is a very serious one, and especially when it is carried out by those claiming Ethiopianism, those who are concerned about Ethiopia. How are you gonna build Ethiopia when you are treating your own brothers, sisters in such a way? The language is abusive. Your action is abusing and torturing, killing, and talking about cleansing blood. And the Tigrans have no place in Ethiopia. How you gonna claim Ethiopia if you are, you know, if you are not treating your own people in a fair way? This is really shame. Is it Ethiopia means Amara only? Or Amara militia, Amara Fano? That's a very serious issue, and this group, this armed group, should be restrained by any means, local law or international law. Otherwise, Ethiopia is a very big problem. There is no way Tigrayans can live with Amara in the future. Really, it's a very bad one. Bad example, bad language, bad action. You know, this group should be controlled. I know Abiy is part of it. I know the Amara region is part of this group. That's why nobody say anything about these people. Nobody control them. They can burn anybody. They can cross into another region, create chaos and anarchy. So they should be controlled. I think the international community is paying attention, but they don't have a mechanism yet to control them, to make them accountable to what they are saying and what they are doing on Tigrans and on Oromos and others. in that country. Unless these people are controlled, Ethiopia will be in trouble, will be in very bad shape to continue as a country. The other thing I want to say something is I repeat my congratulations to Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson or your nomination to the Supreme Court. You make us proud, and you are now representing, the minorities. You are a symbol for girls. Anything can be achievable in the United States. So congratulations again on this very high milestone achievement. And for Americans, in collective way, we should celebrate this. We should celebrate this as an achievement, as a milestone, and letting others, the global community, even the minority can hold the highest bench in the Supreme Court, or the highest position in the country. That's a democracy. That's a democracy. That's an opportunity for all. So that's all I'm gonna say. And please, the global community, pay attention what is happening in Oromia, the drought, the starvation, and the ongoing war in Oromia by this prime minister. And don't listen to the words they are saying. Don't care about the task force they are creating. They are not continue. They are not give you any reason. They cannot bring the military generals accountable. Don't expect that. This is to cheat the global community, or to get some restriction removed, whether AGUA or visa restriction, or upcoming HR 6600 or S3199. They're just playing game to extend their power, their time in power. And they are doing dialogue. That's meaningless too. It cannot bring peace, stability, prosperity in that country. We need a transitional government in Ethiopia, inclusive government in Ethiopia. That's the best solution. We don't, we don't want this prosperity party to play on Ethiopians, to joke on Ethiopians' life. So that's all for today. I will be back with other maybe short or long videos. Thank you again. Be safe, and so long.